When you see MTN, you think you want to make a call. Yes, but this conversation is about more than that. On Friday, 13th of August, 2021, MTN Foundation donated an Oligo-Synthesis machine to the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR. Don't ask me what it means, you'll hear it soon. But suffice to say that the oligo-synthesizer equipment is capable of making short synthetic DNA or RNA copies of organisms and produce genetic materials to aid molecular and synthetic genetic testing. See, I'm running into trouble again. I'm just going to stop there and welcome
because he doesn't understand what he's saying.
I have no idea what I'm saying. It's coming from my mouth. And guess what? What I found out recently, all of these things have to do with my body. This thing, I was telling a friend earlier in the week that your doctor knows more about you than you know about yourself.
Yes.
And it's my body.
Yes.
Just like your mechanic knows more about your
car. Exactly. Exactly.
Anyway, let's have a conversation around this with Odunayo Sanya, who is Executive Secretary, MTN Foundation. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yes, as well as Professor Babatunde Salako, who is Director General, National Institute of Medical Research, NIMR. Thanks.
Nigerian Institute of Medical Research.
I read it earlier. Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
See, Nigerian National, sometimes I have a problem determining which is which. There's so many agencies of government. First of all, we'll come to the MTN part, but first of all, this tongue-twisting, mouth-shaping thing that I see, what does it mean? Oligo-Syn.
Not Holy Ghost.
Thank you. Now, the machine produces, you can call it artificial short DNA fragments or RNA fragments. Now, the DNA is what makes up the genetic architecture of an individual. Mm-hmm. But if you take an organism, for example, and I would like to use the COVID because that's something that everybody understands now in Nigeria. It has a genetic code. And in that code, there is a particular section that makes the body to attack the virus. So we call it the spike protein of the virus. So what the machine does is that the researcher looks at that short segment and then artificially synthesize that genetic code. And that genetic code can then be targeted as an object for diagnosis, for kits, okay? So that if you take that small part and use it to develop maybe a kit, if you put a sample in it, it will detect that same copy in that sample. Okay. And that's what becomes positive, all right? So that's what that does. But it can also be used in sequencing, okay, to sequence an organism that you probably don't know before. In that situation, it's put in a vector. And when you sequence that, all the PCR or the sequencing machine, either of them that is being used does, is to be able to pick the latter part of the genes, and then it continues to replicate and produce plenty of copies of that.
We're going to have to come for medicine 101. But this doesn't even sound like 101, right? It sounds like 401 or 405. Thanks for joining us again, madam. So you want to tell us briefly about MTN Foundation and your relationship with NIMR?
Awesome. The MTN Foundation is MTN's corporate social responsibility arm. It was founded in 2004, and we commenced operations in 2005. People ask why would MTN, want to have a foundation? Why would you see, at MTN we believe that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. When we talk about the connectedness, is beyond voice and data services. It's really the ability to enable people live good lives within their communities and as individuals. And so the foundation came about. The foundation has a full governance structure, has a board, its own board separate from, MTN. But I think it's important to note that I call it a dedicated commitment. MTN solely funds the foundation through this dedicated commitment of up to 1% of MTN Nigeria's profit after tax every year. And that's the MTN has done since 2005. And
you say 1%, but
yes.
1% of several billion is a huge amount of money.
Tell me about it.
That you put into the foundation.
Yes.
Okay. Now, why this particular equipment to NIMR?
Okay, so I was leading up to that. So
right.
at the foundation,
Take your time.
everything we do, we do through the lens of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and through the lens of Nigeria's national priorities. So that breaks it down into two major portfolios that we push within the foundation. So one is youth development, which is obvious. Yesterday was International Youth Day. It's obvious why anyone must invest in youth development in Nigeria today. Our demography says it all. We're young. I think we're the youngest country in Africa, and Africa is the youngest continent in the world currently by demography.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So we do a lot of interventions through scholarships in STEM, science and technology scholarships, and we give scholarships to blind Nigerians to get to go through school. We also do a lot of digital skills training, and we just continue to build the capabilities of the young Nigerians. Now, on the national priorities, that's where the NIMR partnership comes in. There we look at health, we look at community development, a lot of water and sanitation type projects we do. So around, I think, about February, March of 2020, COVID had hit, and I think February 8th was announced. We got our first case in Nigeria, if I remember vividly. And the whole world was pretty much confused. But we got a nod from NIMR. They did come to us to say, this could help us, further research, even beyond COVID, but it could take us a step ahead. And so the journey started. That's the Oligo-Synthesizer, or the Oligo-Synthesis machine. And we worked with NIMR. We had to bring in the machine because there's none. I understand, and Professor Salako can confirm, that's the only functional machine of its type in the whole of West Africa.
West Africa?
Yes, not even Nigeria alone. So we worked. It took a while because we had to bring. They had to bring in the machine. But fast forward, August 2021, we commissioned the laboratory in NIMR's premises in Yaba in Lagos. And for us, it was pretty much beyond. It was, of course, MTN is not a medical organization. We don't deal in. But for us, it was the ability to further. To move Nigeria forward. It was we counted it a privilege to be part of that story where we can say that we contributed to moving Nigeria forward. And Professor Salako will say more. There are many more use cases to what the primers or the oligonucleotides. I'm learning. I'm also learning medicine 701.
Now, Professor, MTN has donated that equipment. Are they also committed to maintaining it for you?
Yes, for a year to start with. And we are happy with that. Well, they have not agreed that we're on our own, but they said for a year first. So I imagine that if we do well, they will review the situation.
But Professor Salako, this kind of equipment, I'm sure it would still be under guarantee for a period of a year.
Yes.
So, how 1 year?
We actually are working with MTN to develop a business plan where we can use funds coming from the sales of primers, which is a product that the machine produces to maintain the machine. And then, of course, we have a direct dealings with the manufacturers. And these days of Zoom and all of that, it's easy to have conversation with the manufacturers if we have any troubleshooting issue. And it's also easy for people on ground to quickly pick from whatever they are advising them to put the thing in shape.
But surely, Professor, if it's the only one of its kind in West Africa, you will be getting patronage from other West African countries, won't you?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's our expectation. And that's one of the reasons why we are trying to get a lot more people to know that this really exists.
Now, so far, how far? What are the stories that one can say as a result of this equipment? These are the things we've been able to do.
Yes, we've had to produce primers or oligonucleotides, whichever one you understand.
Here we go again.
So
let's take the primers.
The primers. So the primers are used to make diagnosis and produce what they also call assay, right? So the assays are used with the kits to make diagnosis of diseases. And for now, we have developed primers and assay for monkeypox, for example, which is a disease about town now.
What everybody wants
to. Of course, it means we have the capacity to detect case if we have samples to treat. And of course, one of the things you want to do to prevent epidemics is to detect case early, so that you can take steps to prevent the spread of the disease. And we have primers for Ebola, for example. So very soon, we're going to come up with local kits that can also make diagnosis of Ebola if we have samples of suspected cases. We have used it to develop primers for making diagnosis of some other viruses, I can't remember now which one, but there was a case in Lutz who had marrow transplantation. And I imagine maybe they're battling with some kind of virus infection, which we have to help them to produce primer for Epstein-Barr virus to make that diagnosis in that patient. So it's as useful as that. And then it can also be used in vaccine development, especially when you look at the protein subunit vaccines. So you can produce primers and produce that kind of protein, and then try to produce it in large quantity using a special bacteria, which the people in the lab are very familiar with, by cloning. And then you can purify that and test it in animals to see whether it can evoke an immune response against the virus or any organism at all. So it's very useful for many things. And most young researchers in the universities and research institutes are busy conducting experiments that require designing and production of primers. And this has to be sent outside Nigeria before. So it takes like 2 to 3 weeks before you get it back. And of course, since it's something you artificially design, you may not get it perfect. So if they produce it for you outside and they send it and you use it and it's not working, then you have to redesign and then send again.
Send some more dollars.
So you are spending more money. But
please
now
use the correct
dollars or
yes.
pounds or euro, as it were. So now it's right at our doorstep.
So it's cheaper to do those things.
It's cheaper. It's also save time.
Now, madam, an equipment of this nature, from what we can gather, being the only one in West Africa, must have cost MTN a tidy sum.
Yes, it did.
Was it up to the 1% annual?
No, it wasn't the entire 1% annual, but yes, it did. It did cost. I think it cost us circa about 100 million
Whoa.
naira to bring that in. But for us at MTN, you know, it's beyond the money.
No wonder nobody else has it in West Africa.
Like I was saying, for us, it's beyond the money. It's the fact that, you know, we have it here, and
the usefulness.
Yes, and the success story of this partnership for us is the fact that it's a testament to private-public sector partnership where it can work. Because I must tell you, you know, we have our key performance indicators. We meet regularly to find out, you know, where we are, where we're heading. He talked about a business plan to commercialize. They're government, but hey, they're private, they're public sector, but we're all working like this because we need to deliver. And so for us, it is about, MTN has done one. We need more organizations, you know, to do the second one, to do the third one, to do more. And then by so doing, we move Nigeria forward.
Madam, my mind was just going round and round and saying, Nigeria needs more cancer detection machines, machines for kidney dialysis and all that. MTN didn't go into all that. They chose this very rare machine to go into. Why is that?
Okay, so I'll do a flashback now in my head. About 8 years ago, MTN, through the MTN Foundation, we've actually done mammography centers. We've done hemodialysis centers. So I think 8 to 9 years ago, we worked with general hospitals across the country, and we were able to install 12 hemodialysis machines. So we remodeled the entire centers and created 12 hemodialysis machines and centers and 6 mammography centers across the country. And it's something, you know, are there challenges? Yes, there are challenges. There are challenges, you know, cultural challenges, the attitudinal challenges, and all of that. But the strength of the partnership with NIMR, I think, gave us a bit more hope that you can still have a private-public partnership that works, really.
It's not going to go away. I'm still perhaps going to go back to the school I never went for medicine, because this whole thing, you know, is coming this way. Prof, we've talked about your plan for sustainability, but the capacity to use these things is another thing altogether. You have said that there are some people, some young people, some doctors, practitioners, who go into the practice trying to use this equipment, and that's admirable. How widespread is the knowledge that we have this kind of equipment in Nigeria's medical or science community?
Well, it's not an equipment that every university should have. It's an equipment that provides opportunity for researchers in every university to move their research forward. If we have opportunity to have more, it's okay. Of course, looking at the population of Nigeria and the area that we expect it to cover, it's more like a business on its own, producing and servicing people who need such services. So the young researchers do their experiment in their laboratory, they design what they want, and then they send it to this lab to produce for them. Okay? So they really don't need to know how it's being produced as part of the skills that they require, no.
And it's the personnel that work with it?
Oh yes, we have trained people, again, thanks to MTN. And we now have a group of young men and researchers who have mastered the process and can deliver at a very short time.
Since this is about research, I'm just curious, because we've been talking about all kinds of, you talked about, you know, our capacity to produce, help in producing vaccines as well. There are questions, because recently we're hearing of some other virus coming from China, Lanya, you know, virus or whatever it is. How does this help us to prepare for the unexpected?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's why the equipment is very useful. When COVID broke out and we had to continue research into it, one of the rate limiting steps was the availability of primers. Ordinarily, we will have to buy. After designing, we send to them, pay, then they will send it. And we thought that this was taking time, especially with the lockdown and no-fly zone created all around the world. So we thought that the best thing to do is for us to have an in-house machine where we could easily produce some of these designed experiments. And that was the basis for it. It's not just for COVID, for many diseases, including bacteria, viruses. For example, we discovered a new malaria vector somewhere in the north recently by our researchers. And we needed to determine whether this indeed is the virus. And we needed to produce primers. If it was before, we would have to be either begging people, CDC or so, to send us the primer, or we design and send them to send it to us. Well, we just went to the next door, design the primer, produce the primer, and confirm the diagnosis.
How much time does it save us? How much money, if you can put a figure?
It would be difficult for me to put a figure, but in terms of time, it saved a lot of time because it's something that could be done. If we get an order today, you can get it the next day, or it will be ready the next day, depending on where it's going. But if it's in and around Lagos, you could get it the next day. And so that saves the 3 weeks of agony, of waiting, and even thinking whether what you have sent is what was produced.
While the patient is dying.
While the patient is waiting.
Well, I don't even know where to begin.
Where to end, you mean?
I don't know where to end because, you know, it's just exciting that such a thing could happen to us.
Yes,
we know
indeed.
we are about 200 million.
Thanks to MTN.
Yes. How many people do we have in West Africa? I don't even hazard a guess. We have to thank you very much, madam, for being here and for all the work you do to move Nigeria forward. Everywhere we go, we move.
Thank you.
Odunwayo Soya is Executive Secretary, MTN Foundation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
As well as Professor Babatunde Salako, Director General, Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
So where do we go next? Where's to?
Lifestyle.
Yes, it's lifestyle, but about how you care for your skin. Stay with us.